Citizen Kane, written and directed by Orson Welles, is now considered by the American Film Institute to be the #1 American movie of all time. Produced in 1941, it caused quite a stir with contemporary film connoisseurs and creators. Its innovations in storytelling and cinematography technique make it a perfect example of the subjects we have discussed in our film experience class so far this semester. The focus of Chapter 2 in our textbook, Looking at Movies by Barsom and Monahan, is on the basics of content and form. It declares the fundamentals of film form as the following. Number 1, movies depend on light. Number 2, movies provide the illusion of movement. And number 3, movies manipulate space and time in unique ways. We will focus in this presentation on the first and third fundamentals in this list for the purposes of our Citizen Kane analysis. First, movies utilize light in very distinctive, expressive ways. While light is simply a necessity for the making and viewing of movies, there is a lot more thought that goes into the lighting effects of individual scenes than just this basic function. In this showroom scene, the contrast between light and shadow creates an ambiguous grouping of people. These reporters could be any of the many people trying to profit off of the event of Kane's death. It also foreshadows the ominous mood surrounding Kane's life and eventual deterioration. In a later scene, dark shadows predict the likeliness of Kane breaking his declaration of principles with the Inquirer, whereas the next scene brightens and illuminates the printed statements and promises of truth. This juxtaposition reveals the contrast between the hopeful intent of Kane's new publication and reality, that his path will lead elsewhere. The unique ability of movies to manipulate space and time may be one of its greatest instruments for conveying a story, as well as a powerful tool for artistic interpretation. As Barsom and Monahan explain, the camera mediates between the perceived exterior, or world we see in the film, and the audience's interior, or the eyes and brain. It transfers our mind into the movie's action in a very specific way. In this particular scene, the sharp angle from the camera to the actor reveals that a competition or conflict is about to take place between these two men. Their figures are large, looming, and differences in height, often associated with power, are more pronounced. Citizen Kane's prismic plot is one of the first of its kind in manipulating time. We start the movie witnessing his death, receive an overview of his life via a newsreel, then delve deeper into stages of his development from a carefree child into a power-obsessed elderly man. Much time passes in between most of these scenes, giving us fragments to piece together while mingling with the present day. As many screenwriters do, Welles creates an expectation early on in the film, pressing audiences to ask questions. First, who is Citizen Kane? The newsreel gives a limited perspective. Then, who or what is Rosebud? The audience is held in suspense until the very last possible moment, when the sled from Kane's childhood is seen being thrown into the fire. As the camera pans out, the audience is left reflecting on Kane's lost innocence and the moral that the more stuff one has, the less happiness he has, along with the idea that love cannot be bought, although it can be thrown away. Welles' direction certainly guided what we saw and how we saw it through these lighting and editing techniques, but he had a lot of help from cinematographer Greg Toland, whose use of deep space composition and deep focus photography were staples of this film's innovation and success. Form, as Looking at Movies emphasizes, allows an artist's interpretation of content to come through in unique ways. Toland capitalizes on this fact. First, let's look at another movie from earlier in Toland's career. The Long Voyage Home, nominated for 7 Academy Awards, was considered a masterpiece by many. In James Steffen's commentary on Turner Classic Movies website, he describes the film as among the most beautifully photographed black and white films of the era, its low-key lighting and deep focus photography contributing to the pessimistic atmosphere of the film. Director John Ford was so proud of the film, he displayed stills from it as wall decor in his home. Toland was all about innovation. I want to work with someone who's never made a movie. That's the only way to learn anything, from someone who doesn't know anything. He found this in Orson Welles. He utilized high-contrast black and white film, deep focus with foreground, middle, and background still sharply focused, the self-blimped camera, ceilinged sets, low-angle lighting, shots composed into light sources, and Germanic expressionism. Let's look at an example of Toland's bone-crisp style, as the Internet Encyclopedia of Cinematographers describes it. By employing recent advances in photography, he was able to capture the action faster without added graininess, as well as cut down on glare. In this still, you can see details in the wallpaper, as well as every curve in the stair rail. The realistic nature of this shot is what Toland desired. He wanted the camera to capture what the eye would see. Together, Toland and Welles achieved a heightened reality of space and time, which exposed how most Hollywood films relied on a surreal appeal, according to the Internet Encyclopedia mentioned earlier. Fluid, moving camera shots and long takes were used as opposed to the conventional intercutting of shots. The opening of the film, with its sweeps over the gate of Kane's mansion, is a perfect example of this technique. The lingering shots of the snow globe and of Rosebud also emphasize the object's significance by means of form. Orson Welles and Greg Toland, along with the other creative minds behind Citizen Kane, display very plainly how form determines the interpretation of a film's content. Directors, screenwriters, and producers alike have goals when making a film, and their efforts to convey those goals make movies a true art form, full of layers and techniques that are invisible to the naked eye, but are becoming clear to us in this film experience class. Thanks.